9 to 20 to 13. I could possibly have been unsound or disagreeable concerning my understanding of the real and true essence of Christianity. The Christians themselves, the example that they have set and are setting and always will set apart of Western civilization and so forth, is indeed formally unsound, incredible, fallacious, mischievous, illogical, and invalid. They are indeed the cursed ones, these persons that pronounce cursedness against malevolence and then blessedness onto benevolence, while at the same time they are clearly practicing malevolent activities, behaviors, thoughts, and abstractions, and so on and so forth. They are indeed the cursed ones, the sodomites, the damned. However, I sense ever further strongly by now that the New Testament was put into and a part of the Holy Bible for right and correct reasoning. I am 10 chapters into Leviticus as of now, and I am sensing that the Old Testament is written for good reasoning in relativity to the definition of the Creator alone as indeed a maddened, very difficult, relentless tyrant. There is good reasoning for the New Testament in Jesus Christ, at last to have made his appearance and manifestation before the truly suffering, the truly afflicted, the truly tormented, the truly tortured persons, souls, and identities. Time will have preceded at last a legitimate understanding and affirmativeness of the Christus must and will have been made. Nine 3 20 to 13. I'm doing alright. Excellent. I'm tired today. I know that feeling. Imla had written to me, telling me that even the next weekend would not be good for her to have me visit with her then. I've written to her earlier today asking for a visit during the weekdays. If not this week, then some amount of weekdays afterward. What a shame about the weekend. I hope she can do it soon. I'm sorry for my severity the other night. Severity? I had written earlier today apologetic words in relativity to Christianity, my understanding of it. Yes, severity. Towards Christianity? I'm sorry. I'm very exhausted today. Severity toward women for one thing, and as well to Christianity, yes. Oh, of course you're tired, darling. No need to apologize. These are your thoughts. The Creator, he sees ahead of me. You write them as you think, as though he observes some fraction of severity apart of me. He sees it, senses it, and he has been trying to draw the severity out from me ever the more, ever further. Did you always think about God, even when you were a child, Adam? No, not so frequently then. So you weren't brought up in a household that talked a lot about religion? Sigyn was quite religious. We would attend the community church on Lord's days, earlier in time. Oh, okay. But less and less over time. Is she still religious? Oh, okay. Sigyn, she is, yes. Okay. Ask? Ask is difficult to comprehend to me of his religiousness. Understandably so. Okay. He does not actually physically affirm a religion. No, fair enough. Though I see strong religiousness a part of him behind his form. He's certainly a good man, but you don't have to be religious to be good. He's a material cause, closest to other form to the Creator himself. I assume that is correct, as you say. Perhaps not correct. Well, he's a wonderful man, I think. Of course he is. He has such an affinity with the All-Father. I wondered where it came from. Yes, I do. But perhaps it came from your early years. Do not overuse my time with you, he has been lately saying in relativity to me. From my earlier years, perhaps. I don't know concerning that right now. What does the All-Father mean by that? Not overusing your time with him. I assume he attends to other activities transcendental from this life experience. Ah, yes. Like calling him, communing with him back and forth, he manifests impatience and irritability and so forth because of this. Such I sense has been the case as of lately. You feel this? Weeks or months right now it has been so. Well, it must be true. It must be, yes. If you feel it so, my situation is very severe. I've fallen into complete disintegration to other human relations. Did you still plan to see the lady again? Another session with her? Did you feel that it helped at all? Practically so to non-family members, non-friendships, non-companionships. I do not know. I know it is very difficult. I wish to relocate. Indeed. Were I to do so, then she would be out of the question for me. Yes, of course. For now, no. I do wish you could relocate. We must make that happen. We must make this happen. There's Pine Valley of the Garden of Eden wilderness, south of my town. No, we must indeed. Is that closer to Embla? I'm becoming very, very cruel, mean, and sadistic to others. Yes, a town east of hers. Okay. Southern California, condemned. It is. It is a step down from this general area that I'm a part of, though it is acceptable to me. Good. You must find somewhere that is quiet, that gives you a sense of peace. Indeed, I must. Somewhere suitable for contemplation. Yes. This is something that cannot be done where you are right now. Not at all. I agree with you, not at all. Well, let's hope that you or Emla or both of you can find this place because it is out there. Nine, 4, 20 to 13. 2 stood against many. The past is the present. The future is the past. Plain and simple. Recollection, reminiscence, remembrance, memory, and so forth is forever clearly desirable to affirm, and it is perfectly permissible to do so. And it is so as prolonged in time's duration and as magnanimous of the soul's potentiality as is everywhere possible to do so. Every last one of us that is sane, healthy, and lively of temperament, not more than a handful of us legitimately remain. Intellectual, metaphysique, and so on and so forth, but every means does not affirm this post-third millennium completely finalized, degenerative, corruptible, terminated life experience. But every means do the ones on the top of the human great chain of being predicate themselves to the recollections, the reminiscences, and the memories, and so forth, attributable to far earlier in time's duration experiences. Sanity, healthfulness, and liveliness of temperaments and dispositions alone are capable to legitimately affirm of this identification. The human substances that are attributable to 10 or so years apart from the self-substance's age in time's duration clearly and evidently affirm of themselves as belonging to, indeed, the worst of all possible human generations ever conceived and manifest, and ever experienced a part of this life experience. There by now have proven of themselves only one other somebody, perhaps some other one known to the self-substance a part of this life experience, that was at all attributable to substantial worthiness and necessity, not to cast the substance out or to burn such specific substantiation. There are no others identifiable a part of the specific human generation by now, no others at all whatsoever in relativity to the knowledge and the comprehension of the self-substance. There's a glass barricade, a barricade of ice, situated in the middle of the two-floored threshold. The master moralists, the lordship moralists, are communing with the creator, a part of the floor up above the glass barricade, the ice barricade. The liberals, the Christians, the humanists, the fools are communing down below and only with themselves. They assume that they are communing with the creator's volition and so forth, though such is not to have been the case at all whatsoever. The qualities of their perspective, understanding, comprehension of the Creator are by no means attributable to that of the understandable, evidently identifiable qualities of the essence and volition of the Creator himself. Such bright qualities that are attributable to the understanding of the master moralists as are derived from and formalized through profound, subtle, refined, genuine intuition, reflection, rationalization, and so forth. The down below fools by no means possess such intelligible faculties capable to obtain this consciousness and knowledge as found within and a part of their sharply contrasted protagonists. their mouths are forever pressed negatively and jealously and vengefully and so forth against the glass or ice barricade, just waiting for the fire or for the raised temperaments of the master moralists to increase and to diminish the fortification of the barricade to the sooner or later inevitable points that the barricade will have them melted sufficiently enough for the liberal, the Christian, the humanist, the fool, to have the then victimized master moralist fall into the forever preying upon bondage moralist's mouth, to have the lordship moralist swallowed by the antagonist, consumed by the villain, and deceased by the abomination, into the trap of the cursed ones, the villains that they were completely and totally so. The best advice that is to be given and to be remembered is to tread carefully, attentively, and consciously away from their manifestation, to stay away from them completely, and to continue communing and identifying the soul and the person with the airy, windy, beautiful, aesthetic, rational, sensible, logical, valid, and so forth knowledge of the essence and volition of the Creator. 9/4/2013 I'm doing quite alright. I'm doing quite well tonight. It has been an easygoing day for me. It's peaceful here today. Good, I'm pleased that helps. Again, another musical piece was recorded. 32 minutes it was. Oh, lovely. Dark Fantasy for Strings. What a great title. If only the title with dark in it signifies merely the other side of the spectrum from the prior day's light fantasy for strings. That ultimately there is not much darkness a part of this day's piece, no. Great. Both pieces sound as if they are beautiful on the air. Oh, I believe they are. Mimir likes these pieces that I do on this keyboard. He mentions amazement at these pieces, that they are getting better and better. I think the ones I heard were amongst your loveliest pieces. As though a new era were obtained attributable to my performances. Yes, he's probably right. Yes, you're right. Yes, you're right. The essences you have heard, I believe you're in reference to. They're very accessible. Essences, yes. There are other pieces afterward to the essences as well, to these essences as well. An improvement from them, I think. Such as the fantasy pieces we have been mentioning about as of today and yesterday. Well, they must be very good then. Yes, I think so. Amazing. I love the fact that you enjoy doing them so much, creating them. It releases something from within, I think. I agree with you, yes. It all pours out in the music. If only there were other persons obtaining recognition of these works, other than one or two others. I know, but the world is in darkness now. Oh yes, you're so right about that. Or at least the sunset of our age, and the night is coming. So true that is. So few people will understand or want to. I understand that the night is already obtained. Indeed, it is fallen upon us. The sunset must have been during the first half of the 2000 decade, so your music is light and struggling to be seen. Perhaps by 2006, the night had become obtained. Yes, agreed. So agreeable to those words of yours, light struggling to be seen. I believe them to be the truth. Knowing this is cathartic to me, calming and understandable ultimately. It is the truth. But there is nothing wrong with my own person. That is how your music manifests itself. My own soul and identity, but everything wrong with them, every last one of them. Your own goodness pours out into this music. It is not you, it is the others around you. Yes, I agree with you. You have to be right on this. Cassius Longinus was his name. Oh yes, so much darkness, so much ignorance. How could your music be understood? This magnificent, golden, brilliant, bright philosopher manifested alive during Roma's own darkness, Longinus. He himself would lament on this. There are words recorded of him. So you are the Longinus of your day, lamenting on the darkness and the painful, very painful solitude of his own person around his others during his day. It sounds like you, Odin. Yes, I identify with him so completely as this is the case for him as well. So you should. How terrible that is to imagine it, to behold it. You're brilliant and bright, and yet others do not see this. They can't. No, they just cannot do so, see me. Perhaps it is too great for them to grasp. Well, they see me, for I am the light, though they do not affirm with me benevolently. Well, they see you, but they cannot understand, are not as a legions or ally to me. They are the antagonists, the villains. Yes, they cannot understand me. Ultimately, then they do not affirm with me desirously. No, they don't. But that is the price of ignorance and blindness, and the price of being born in a dark age. In a dark age so truthful, and you suffer because of this. They assume, they assert, we are living in the brightest of ages. Nonsense, completely so. Rubbish indeed. Materialistic innovations, darkness. It is nothing closer to the beginning. So few have the light. It is a blessed thing. The others have no light at all. They are hideous creatures doomed to the brightness of the beginning. I agree with you. They are the doomed ones. They are. You shall rise above it all. Their hearts? No. They are blackened. They are the ones blackened. They are. They affirm with benevolence, curse malevolence, though at the same time, you'll be standing when all about crumbles to dust. You will be the man among the ruins. They are practicing malevolent activities, sentiments, thoughts, abstractions, and so forth, forever so, perpetually. I really truly hope that these words of yours are truthful. So that is their misfortune, and they are cursed because of it. Your role in my life. They will crumble to nothing and know only despair, but you will have everything. You are indeed a righteous protagonist. You do not further me with virtue incarnate downward. I believe what I say to be the truth. And I do wish to agree with you, of course, always. I feel agreeable to your words. I believe you are blessed in some way. We both are not mistaken. I just don't know how or why or what form it takes. I do not agree with that word we both have been mistaken. I'm not clever enough. Well, I believe that I'm clever enough to myself. Blessed in your talents. I comprehend everything rightly enough. There is some kind of light inside you, though you suffer for it. Nine, 5, 20 to 13. The worst of all possible experiences happen to the best of persons. The worst experiences happen to the better of persons. The bad experiences happen to the good persons. The good experiences happen to the bad persons. The better experiences happen to the worst persons. The best of all possible experiences happen to the worst of persons. Plain and simple. In the post-third millennium Western civilization, the good, the better, the best of persons are either striving to transcend and to overcome the villainous debauchery of their civilization. This is including the good and the better of persons, or they have transcended and overcome the villainous debauchery and unspeakable criminality of their civilization already, the best of persons. Therefore, the good, the better, the best of persons are forever in confliction and in confrontation with their surroundings. The negative experiences from around them take their occurrence according to the life-affirmative person's degree of nobility, virtuousness, intelligence, and so forth. The other various negative persons will assert that they are the blessed ones. By no means is this to have been the case at all whatsoever. They assume that they are the blessed ones, and worthy of preservation and so forth, merely for the fundamental notion, the fundamental error and mistake, that their civilization panders to them, these cursed ones, and that they are surrounded by their malevolence, irrelevance, insignificance, obliviousness, and nihilism, and so forth, to the point that it appears to them that they are not cursed at all, but instead blessed, though this situation is merely completely transient, and the greatest of all possible illusions. The illusion itself of their unspeakable criminality assuredly lifts away from them upon their transition to the subsequent afterlife, and then they reap what they have forever sowed with themselves, which is essentially and ultimately the complete and total adulterous polygamy with billions and billions of other animate substances, subtracted, of course, from the merely countable handful of European lordship moralists that legitimately, heroically, and courageously remain a part of this post-third millennium Western civilization aforementioned. Nine, 8, 20, and 13. Moment. loved your music. You loved it. Oh, great. It was wonderful. Oh, thank you. I can't say how much I loved it. The music, the beginning of it. I just sat here and let it all wash over me. It is so deep and moving, do you think? The beginning was very moving, beautiful. It was a symphonic experience. I said something earlier to the effect of the music itself represents communication together with the others that they communicate together with me, at last with remorse and compassionate and heartfelt feeling and mercifulness to them, at last from me. As though, how could you have said those things to us, Odin? Very interesting. For earlier experiences observed exceedingly cruel, mean, merciless thoughts and abstractions in relativity to them. Of course, this is personal to you. This is what created such a wonderful piece. I could only hear what I heard. The essence of this music represents these subsequent merciful, apologetic experiences with them, reflective experiences with them. And it was an amazing experience. Oh yes, personal it is. At first, I understood that this music was in relativity to the Creator, and that instead I was the one saying to him, the Creator, how could you have done these things to me? This perspective itself is still credible and sound affirm of it, though I think moreover now, instead, ultimately, the perspective of the other human substances in relativity to me is instead ultimately what my music is directing itself onward and toward. The Creator is instead I, myself to the Creator is instead them, the others in relativity to I and myself. Well, if that is the case, then I can only try and imagine what beautiful creations you are going to give us. Is that thought not profound and moving, to comprehend such a situation in practice? Oh yes, beautiful creations to come. My music, it is maturing very, very much now. I'm lying down in bed, and I am imagining these beautiful passages that I must remember them, or their essence, and perform them in their recordings, particularly the Grail theme passages. A single note, exceedingly modest melody. Oh, you must, Odin. Then it continues, and then it overlays with another single note, exceedingly modest melody, though this melody itself is twice as slow, and then over the course of the music's time, yet another modest Grail melody, even so twice as slow as that of the second, slower melody. All the while, all of these melodies themselves are recognizable and remain preserved of their continuation or manifestation during the same time. This is incredible. This is how you do it. It is just one simple thought that I could do. Oh yes, music itself. You just hear it in your mind. It does not source from merely feelings. Dialectic, almost like a musical image. Intuition from actual life experiences. It's intuitive. Must be demonstrated through the music's passages. Oh yes. Incredible. Odin, you do have such a talent. Music does not excel beautifully beyond a Schumann or a Liszt if music does not obtain this kind of comprehension aforementioned. Indeed, Wagner was completely aware of this necessity of actual life experience dialectic, a part of music itself. Understood. Therefore, needless to say, the vast gulf that separates him from so many of the others, that of which these others did not actualize this kind of truthful practice through music. I'll practice it very much beforehand where I'd record another piece. I understand. That is very interesting to me. Verdi? Perhaps not. Verdi, not really for me, no. Donizetti? Rossini, I enjoy it quite much, actually. Who I love. Rossini, who I also love. Yes, Rossini. He's my favorite comic opera composer. The great Rossini, Schopenhauer would mention of him. Donizetti wrote beautiful music that I personally love, and Rossini was brilliant. Of course, the brilliance of Rossini. It was, he mentioned of him, never failing. Bellini too, I love. Never stagnating. That's right. Forever new passages, never stagnating. Brilliance that was of him. Right. Well, you'll have some of his. You mentioned Bellini. You will have? Yes, I'm very fond of the earlier composers. Yes, many of them. I'm not such a lover of Verdi. The earlier composers, you refer to Baroque era beforehand? Yes, and no, neither am I. He, unfortunately, does not move me. No, nor me. Identify him almost to Tchaikovsky. Yes, it is with Tchaikovsky I hear his music, and I hear this characteristic silence. Yet some of Tchaikovsky moves me, as though nothing is taking occurrence a part of his music, even though it is populist and mocked. Some of Tchaikovsky I do agree. So some of his lesser known work is moving. Populist, yes, but Verdi and Puccini leave me cold. Oh, Puccini does this for you. I wondered about Puccini, whether I could find some beautiful passages from him. I hate Puccini's deliberate attempt to manipulate my emotions. We have all his works. There's great beauty in many of them. Deliberate attempts of his, but he is overt, too emotional. Right, I sensed that there was some great beauty. I refused to surrender. Alright. Alright. But I love his beauty. I admit it. I sense that from many of my own earlier works, I was falling mistakenly into that trap. Myself, Wagner exhausts me in an entirely different way. I did not earlier grasp the right science behind music. I understood. Oh, needless to say, of course, Wagner. Yes, it is different. No words for him. The highest. The greatest, yes. No words can explain. He had his own record. It is the actual experience of hearing him itself, his own recorded maturation. And afterwards, how do you explain such a thing? He was set in stone, this greatness of him. His music reflected this. Yes, right, hearing his music itself. Then afterwards, right. Yes, Puccini was depicting a story. This great mind, accumulating ever further, ever the more. Therefore, his music had to interpret love and passion. Puccini, yes, quite a significant subject matter, but I don't want to be reduced to physical wreck for a woman dying on a sofa. Though not ultimately so, love and passion not quite a significant subject matter. Ha! Ha! Right, triviality. I'll not give in. Oh my. Yes. A woman dying on a sofa. It is beautiful music. Triviality, I say it is. Ha ha ha. Ha ha. Now there's a quite profound thoughts. Again, yes indeed. Such thoughts leads to this proposition we had discussed today already. Yes. And how can you say those things to us? Oh, no. Whoever it is, the great mind that may say it. Again, the brutality, the grandiosity. Well, I'm pleased that this evening you can think of music in such a way. Effortless and cared less for its reception from the others. September 8, 2013. 9/12/2013. Little boy blue, little boy green, 9. Subject has become a cat. His face is careless, oblivious. His tongue hangs out of his face sideways. He's smiling dumbly. Immediately shoves his human-like left index finger far and deep into his nose. Pulls out some shadow monstrosity, though immediately afterward this transforms into a green apple fruit. Mutters insensible phrase to himself in relativity to his happiness and to his fortunateness because of this green apple fruit's manifestation and acquisition to the subject. A worm with human eyes is seen crawling around its substantiation. Delicious. Subject mutters to himself, throws away all care and sensitivity to his life experience, munches on, and throws down into his digestive system the apple in its entirety in one bite. Oh, how tasty! Subject's a subconscious reflection of a dog that manifests. Hey, what are you doing? Grabs the subject by the neck. Neck is squishy and boneless, without any firmness. The cat continues smiling dumbly and absent-mindedly. The dog slaps the cat's face several times back and forth. Saliva gushes out from one side to the other, with each and every smack to his face. Stumbling and absent-mindedly, cheerfully and happily so in perpetuity. Mine, I tell you, the cat transforms speedily so into multiple forms of incoherent material substantiations. Many of them, these forms, as industrial and mechanical of essence. Red, yellow, blue colors are flashing about him. He finalizes his form into that of a peaceful, contented tree, stilled of movement, suddenly, with only one branch that is moving, dancing up, down, and about, calling out loudly for attention for the self-sustenance. An apple from the branch drops suddenly to the ground, splats of its sound. Its dropping to the ground as though understandable and recognizable as having come from nearby birds erect. The bird flying by, at the same time sensible as though it were a passenger jet plane, with hundreds of shadowy business concerned figures manifest lifelessly about nearby the plane itself's windows. The apple splats to the ground. Another tree springs from the soil and grows up rapidly and wildly against the primary contented tree. At the top of this tree shines brightly, a child's countenance smiling with gleefulness and youthful cheerfulness. The sunlight beams from his cheerful countenance. Braid hints, songs are being sung gleefully from various naive, life-affirmative children. Campground setting, daylight, the community ring around the campfire. Logs, logs, logs. Whoa. The subject has become a statue, pensive, thinking to himself tirelessly. He's nude and shadowy. White coloration surrounds himself all about him. Suddenly perceptible that he is manifest as an art drawing on a sheet of paper. The sheet of paper is then torn out from its pad, crumpled up and tossed away into some bin of trash. The bin of trash is then a potting container for plants. Up from the base of the pottery soars a plant stem. The plant then actualizes itself. Then it is immediately cut off at its base with some obscure white gloved pair of hands scissors. The plant stem and flower at its top. The sunflower is then thrown on its side into red-hot smoky furnace. The top head of the furnace then rings a train's whistle sound. The train itself is driving to the right of the substance's perception, though it covers no ground with its travel, perpetually stationed in one position of space, gleefully and carelessly, without any concern over any other purpose than to continuously preserve its fixated activity. This is madness! Screams from the voice themselves. The sounds of the screams accelerate and increase in their tone and pitch level. The tone and pitch level rises upward in its intensity to an irrecoverable point of zenith. A sonic boom that ruptures manifests once the fixated and beheld scream reaches its zenith. The fixated and beheld scream then suddenly decelerates of its movements, diminishes of tone and pitch level. Another scream from some obscure position in space manifests and identifies, together with this scream's behavior and activity, incomprehensible communications together with themselves and with each other. Countlesses of happy children are dancing about, back and forth, radiance of light. Hey, cloud. Hey, cloud. Hey, cloud. Hey, cloud. Hey, cloud! The subject's perception zooms up close to its, immediately so, smacks at its then manifest countenance. Eyes then pop out of the cloud's formality. It blows perceptible gusts of chilling wind out from before its face in shock, in astonishment, in wonder, in bewilderment of just what has happened to its identity. Plumbers are rushing about from one direction to another. Jumping about, hitting bricks on their heads, coins manifesting above the hit bricks. They disappear into oblivion instantaneously afterward. The antecedent cloud is now some kind of taxi vehicle with blue and black wheels and an instructions ahead at the front. Plumbers climb aboard the taxi vehicle. The vehicle then descends downward into the air. It is upside down and traveling backward. It ascends upright into the air, 5 seconds with me, please. It is right side up now and traveling forward, a perfect loop that's just been made. It continues in its fixated and unchangeable path, rushing on its course faster and faster and faster. It becomes a ring of fire, an actual physical dog that jumps right through its active substantiation. A bone is then given to the dog to chew on from some unrecognizable human hand. The dog is then petted proudly and rewarded from his owner, from the transcendental immaterial up above. The dog then sits down on all its fours in a backyard garden area, with its dog house and dish of kibble right immediately alongside its formality. Pillars, 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 everywhere alongside the perception of the self-substance, passing by them and through them, faster, lightly, rapidly, ever the more, again and again and again. Each of the pillars possess a part of its formality, imaginations, and observations of various life experience, sceneries, and activities, most of them attributable to household activities, apparently of a 1950s identification. The kitchen appliances are dated from such era, the clothing, the haircuts of the human figures, again of such era, predicated to its, and so on and so forth. A fighter jet that moves without from the subject's perception directly in front of him. The pillars alongside his form are then being shot at them with the fighter jet's infinite supply of laser-like weaponry. Pillars then burn up from the ground floor upward, never to manifest themselves again afterward. Spirals of perception, exceedingly fast and rapid at pace. Subject is playing around with a washing machine, apparently. Purple, blue, and green colorations are spiraling about, exceedingly fast and haphazardly so, at the complete command and at the total control of the subject's mischievous volition. Spirals or perception then stop immediately, perfectly still in motion, at the liberty and decision of the subject's volition. Spirals of perception then turn on again, exceedingly fast and rapid at pace. Subject's spouse then appears beforehand, part of his right shoulder, angelic and little of size. Remember, be very, very careful. Subject is then suddenly a bull, grazing lazily on a hot summer afternoon ranch. He is then suddenly branded with a cattle prod onto his hind quarters, not for material consumption. Thumbs up from a white-gloved hand. Okay, good to go. Engines rev. Preparations for a race through some autumn season lightly forested wilderness. Smokey the Bandit is among the go-kart's racers, competitors. Red and thick a mustache, revolvers in both of his hands, firing absent-mindedly left and right all around him. The revolvers are spinning wildly about in his hands. A sunflower with many inward seeds manifests directly above him, 2 smaller sunflowers each beside it. A circus clown rises out from the top of the middle path. Sunflower, hands raised high above his head. Go! Is shouted out. Go! 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 Is shouted out loud from him, happily and joyously so. The clouds in the sky up above are blowing with exceedingly rapid gusts. The clouds themselves are scurrying lightly and haphazardly across the sky. The sun is shining brightly and warmly. A gunshot then resounds from some obscure plate-armored hand from beside the starting line of the kart racers. The kart racers then rush out onto the racetrack. Attention is turned to a chalky green of coloration suit of armor beside the start of the racetrack. It is facing the racetrack and standing beside it, in front of some box of countable dots, and the dots as audience attendants and racetrack observers. The dots are as though drawn with the artistic capacity of a truly young child. The chalky green suit of armor has held up to his helmet's mouth a golden-colored trumpet. The subject is blowing into it, in manner as unfolded below its instrumentation, with purple and white checkered imagery. The message on his banner is inconceivable to the understanding of its impression. A blimp then flies up and above. The blimp that flies by and up above the front end of it, a face of a cheerful and gleeful owl-like pilot, with blue and white average Joe worker's cap placed upon its countenance. An undying cigar burns in its mouth. Its face is bobbing back and forth with wholly careless, oblivious gaiety, cheerfulness, and happiness. The kart racers down below, they crash into themselves and burn in the resultant fire. A twisted mass of metal remains identifiable together. The blimp up above is then shot at and opened up with a burst cork from a swiftly opened bottle of celebratory wine from one of the audience spectators in attendance. The blimp blows out its air's compression. It flies out of the horizon, haphazardly so. The badly drawn cartoon-like mountains in the distant horizon flash brilliantly with red, orange, and yellow colorations. Fire that erupts from the blimp's crashing points into the distant horizon. The crowd then cheers in celebration at this spectacular experience. Congratulations arrives at the subject's perception and appears in the Las Vegas casino-like coloration and passivity. Oh well, try again some other time. Suddenly, as though the perception of the subjects were of a television set having then just been turned off and brought into a state of restful, peaceful, blackened, and deadened, inanimate condition resolution. September 12, 2013. Night 15/20/13. Into the past. I'm okay right now. That's very good to hear. Yes, really. I'm pleased for you. Yesterday you were not good, and so it is a relief. What have you been doing? I agree with you. Well, just before I was, and still am, of course, in a peaceful state, contemplating myself, remembering my childhood, imagining it with ornateness and detail. I've done this, practiced the fire night as well. Nice memory. Exceedingly detailed imaginations. Yes, at this point in my time, I'm as though returning to my childhood almost completely so, through memories of it, and so forth. Have you had any more thoughts on your music? Perhaps this reverie may inspire something. My 5th grade year, especially so, returning to it. Were you happy at school? I've had more thoughts on my music lately. Yes, very, very beautiful thoughts. I'm exhausted, however, lately. Beautiful thoughts are good. I must wait for the recording of them later, but they will wait until you're ready. Hold on to them. The Grail was wonderful. Yes, I was happy with my life all the way up to my 13th year of age. Then something happened to change that. That is, by the dawn of the 3rd millennium, the good memories were over with and finished afterward. Oh yes, many bad things had occurred afterward, and over the course of time, one after another. A string of bad things. For most primarily so, I understand this primary badness was the divorce of Sigyn from Ask during 1996. A traumatic thing for any child. Then with the introduction of Loki, Satan, that was Robert Frederick Walker. Loki, Satan, final kaput, condemned, final kaput. That was far too brutal, far too merciless. So for one as sensitive as you, a disaster. Unnecessary it was, yes. Then by 2000, the major clinical depression had understandably begun, a part of me. Totally understandable. The hospitalizations had taken their occurrence. That itself was terribly unnecessary. Awful. The entirety of my 9th grade year was spent at some foreign city stowed away from my childhood environment and friendships. Who decided on these hospitalizations? Sigyn and Loki both had decided upon this against me. It was necessary that I was extremely depressed by this divorce of Sigyn from Ask. I'm surprised Loki had any say in it. Horrible. Very damaging for you. So, when I returned at last to my rightful high school, there were monsters everywhere a part of it. Of course. During 2002, it was when illegal immigration of devils and monsters and so forth had very evidently begun. The entirety of my high school years, at the end of it, was the year 2005, was essentially extreme anger against them, a nightmare. Essentially against the Christians and the liberals found everywhere a part of such high school environments, tolerating these street degenerates, drug addicts, partiers, skateboarders, degenerates, hedonists, cursors, and so on and so forth. Appalling. We have the same thing here now. Yes, the piano instrument practice of mine was at a prime, while at the same time this itself was having taken occurrence. Can you only imagine the absolute detachment, the complete separation, the complete contrast, the grandiose comparison, and so forth, that I would helplessly begin to imagine myself against them? It is completely understandable, this too. Was it your only escape from the horrors of the wrath of God at that point against them? Indeed, I did dress in complete black, in floor-length trench coats, and so forth. I did wear inverted crosses, but this, I understand, it was not at all Satanism. No, I understand. This was fury and wrath from the up above against them, against the Christians, the fools, the liars, deceivers, tricksters, destroyers, and so forth. As far as humanly possible, it was that I could understand myself in my life experience at the time. Afterward, graduation from high school, vain hopes was to study music as a college student. This had lasted not further than 2 semesters. What a shame. By then, lost to the world of Odin. Complicated events and experiences were taking shape, exceedingly complicated events and so forth. It is written quite better in detail a part of my first 2 books, understandably so, hundreds and hundreds of pages on this topic or subject matter. Though, yes, music itself, I sense it, my natural gift and skill at it, the separation of myself at the very wrong time, at the very wrong place against them. It was terrible. What was to have occurred earlier in time? This should have never happened. Far earlier in time were essentially the only good years of my life's experience. How awful to have only early good times, up to my 13th year, with the madness of the external world outside, world, its generation and so forth, had begun affecting me against them, the others, disastrously so. Only early good times, yes. My imagination of my memories by now is becoming exceedingly ornate and elaborate. Of my far earlier memories, I'm imagining primarily so my 5th grade year of school, during my 10th year of age, to the very point that I'm imagining a specific month from the year 1997 taking occurrence, August of 1997 even, the very moment that I'm asleep in my queen-size mattress bed at the Sunset Drive house. Just before another day of school begins, I imagine Sigyn opening my door up and waking me up with her voice. Good morning, Adam. Time to get up for school. It's school day. Time to get ready for breakfast. Undesirably getting out of my bed, my room itself. Every detail of it is remembered. A part of it. The Lego sets, the Explorian Lego sets, and the Technic sets built toy machines up against the white shelf in that specific corner of the room. The brown varnished dresser with the 3 rows of drawers. The books on the far right of the dresser. The President's history book. The cartoon childlike atlas books stacked there. The mirror in between the outer rows of the dresser. The EnviroCare machine right beside the bed, the closet to the left, and so forth. 5:30 in the morning, I think it was. What is an EnviroCare machine? Sigyn having made her excellently textured pancakes for breakfast. EnviroCare machine is a dust filter machine, one that makes a humming noise while it is turned on. Okay, you're very dependent on this machine earlier on. It itself could have affected during then and afterward my sensitivity to noise, because of my dependency on it to cancel out the other household noises. Interesting, it could be. Well then, Sigyn and Mimir. Loki, son to Loki, and I are in the blue van of Sigyn's. she having driven us to school in the morning. Mimir is in the 4th grade. Son to Loki is in the 1st grade or kindergarten at the time. I see Michael Greenan, Samuel Stovold, Brandon Byrne, Anthony Pistotti, Daniel Orr, as he bolt torn, respectively, as such. Samuel Stovold, name withheld for a time, final kaputs. Beery, Brandon Byrne, Beery, particularly so, final kaputs. Anthony Pistotti, Loader, final kaputs. Daniel Orr, Poor, final kaputs, respectively. In the Nordic Pantheon in the Nordic mythology, Pantheon, name, title, appellation, way, final kaputs. Ian Fretz, premonition to Ian Johnstone, who Ian Johnstone is Hjörnir in the Nordic Pantheon mythology, name, title, appellation, way, final kaputs. 4. Adam Patrick Kopecky, who is Odin, therefore Ian Johnstone, who is Vili, and therefore Anthony Pistotti, who is Ve, so, tertially so, respectively so, final kaputs. In the Nordic Pantheon, in the Nordic mythology, Pantheon, name, title, appellation, way, final kaputs, who are to have been the first 3 men in the story in the story of the Dunya way, particularly so, tertially so, summary so, final kaputs. In the Nordic mythology, Pantheon, name, title, appellation, way, particularly so, final kaputs. Genesis, final. Therefore, out at the front of the classroom, for the very first time, Sam, I remember having worn a black t-shirt with a Star Wars illustration on it. We are in the classroom. Language arts is being studied. Social studies, mathematics, science, all in one classroom with one teacher throughout the day. Every day during the school year itself. Name withheld, final kaputs. That wonderful teacher, he was of that year. The classroom of 31 students. The one student myself and among the rest of them, with the 30 other students. The drawing journal time, the most favorite of our time. The drawing journals, with the sketches that the teacher had us with the passion and deep understanding for us to do. Recess in the morning, recess in the afternoon, the lunch break in between. The hill outside the classroom. All of us 7 best of friends that we were, congregated out there, eating our lunch together, sometimes from the cafeteria, sometimes from home. The conversations that we would discuss between each other, they were exceedingly comical, hilarious, and grandiose of their eccentricity. Clearly, the indirect references of our conversations were ultimately revolving around me. Ha ha ha. The back of the school, the jungle gym, the sandbox with the pipes and the climbing objects, the black top with the basketball courts, the big grassy green field in the back in the back. During physical education time, our class would be out there playing soccer, or basketball, or baseball. Yes, there was a baseball field out there as well. Or if not playing these games, then dodgeball was another one that we would play. I remember I was quite good at baseball. Then afterward, at the end of the school day, there's the return home to my acquired family. Many of these days themselves bolt torn, I would invite him over, sometimes for the day itself, sometimes if not, then to spend the nights together with him, if during a weekend, perhaps. Sam, in the Nordic mythology pantheon, name title efficient way, name withheld for a time, final kaput. Buri, Luder, Bor, even all of us, we would occasionally invite each other over and play video games together and so forth. And my goodness, the video games themselves, the era of my childhood saw to the golden years of the video game industry itself. Likewise was the computer industry truly advancing. I'd gotten to experience the magic of Windows 3 of 1. I remember it was on Ask's computer, Windows 95 and so forth over time. The desktop screens of such operating systems. My goodness, the magic of them all. During the 5th grade year, however, this was the year that an advanced computer was to have been purchased and obtained by our Ask and Embla, Sigyn, and Loki family. Final kaput. It was a very good computer, with the Motor Racer game on it that we had as a debut game before it. The games themselves would advance over time, develop such an aura to them. Mimir and son to Loki and I, late at night on a weekend, playing on the computer the game StarCraft, with its online competition program Battle.net, or The Sims. This son to Loki, final kaput, my acquired Sigyn and Loki family, particularly so final kaput, step brother, Loki's son, final kaput, would come over essentially every week. We would play the Sims game late at night, laughing with each other at this, frustrating Loki because of our own noise. Ha ha! Yes, the internet at the time, 1997, was so very different. There was this aura to it. So even you made a noise that disturbed people once. Ha ha! When I would look back upon this, oh yes, I sent to this thought of yours, huh? Loki's living room with the white carpets, Loki lying down on a sofa, watching MASH, haha. Sigyn on a recliner chair, somewhat behind him. My Ask and Embla, Sigyn and Loki brothers and I in the other living room watching our cartoon television networks, Rugrats, Doug, Guts, Rocko's Modern Life, Ren and Stimpy, all that and so forth. Yes. The Nintendo 64 is there, GoldenEye the game. I don't know any of these, but I can guess. That itself golden it was. The memory of it, this era of ours, understandable. And just out back. Frecky the dog. We had our action figures at the time, so many of them. Mimir and I, our little games that we would play together with them, to the little space of adventure action figures. We named my one tall man, and Mimir's one small man. Our games with these toys, they were so very brutal and intense, abusive against them. Those toys. We'd pick them up and throw them violently across the room. Our voices that we would act them out to be confronting and coarse and exceedingly angry in their identities of zero great intellect. Mimir, son to Sigyn and Loki kaput, and I, we would have our pillow fighting games with son to Loki, with Loki's son, final kaput, sometimes playing this game with us where he'd have been over at the place. Sounds as if you liked Loki's son. The pillows themselves were as though weapons, with steel blades at their ends. We would slice these pillows against each other. When the pillows would hit us, we would imagine perhaps one of our arms as though it were to have been dismembered or sliced off. One of our legs, even our heads themselves. And we would imagine the blood and the gore, the ground rising further and further until we were drowned by our blood. Oh my goodness, we were children at the time too. I do like Loki's son, yes. Oh, very much so. He was so weird as a child. Haha. Mirror would nickname Loki's son Paratio as well, too. Why? As though he were some fruit, an anomaly, a very strange peculiarity to the observation and understanding of the outside world. He had dreams of becoming a scientist even. He was exceedingly weird, very, very weird at the time. Hilarious nerd he was, a true comic relief. Very, very weak. The clothing he would wear was khaki. All of his clothing, all of his shirts and pants and so forth, is bland, very out of fashion, out of date, khaki color. Khaki hat, likewise. Oh dear. Glasses, yes. During one incident, he would spontaneously gasp in astonishment and then suddenly throw his face down, start sucking and blowing violently and frantically on his kneecap. Poor Loki's son. What is he doing now? Well, fortunately, Sigyn tells me later in our years, he had grown up and out of this silly stage of his. He's exceedingly mature by now. He has his girlfriend now. I believe her from Illinois moved out here to California with him. He's working somewhere. I do not know exactly. Okay, Loki's son. Ha ha ha. I wonder what he looks like now. Loki's son, the Viking. He now looks handsome and rugged of his face. He resembles Ask. Loki quite... Oh, no, moment, lips, final. But he resembles Loki quite very much. Yeah. Real Viking man. He was an only child. Viking, yes, perhaps. Sad for him. Loki was Italian. Loki's son is a Viking name, though he was blonde of hair. Loki. Haha. Of course it is love. That Loki's son is a Viking name. Yes, many Italians are. Loki's son, the Red. Eric the Red. Eric the Red. Right, as you say. Eric the Ever Ready. Haha, good pun on the name. Eric the Not Quite Ready. Eric, Loki's son. Eric Walker, Loki's son himself. Not at all quite ready was he at the time. He's doing well by now. Thankfully, fortunately. Good. Yes, the imagination of these memories could go on forever. These memories are wonderful, so full of color. All these memories aforementioned are sourced from 1 year alone in life. 1997, yes, a magic year. It was. Cherish them. No one can ever take them away. There are plentiful amounts and kinds of good memories from prior years as well too. Up to 2000, 2001, all these years, plentiful kinds of memories that I could imagine and remember of them, and discuss of them together with you over the course of time. Lovely. No one can ever take these away. They are still manifest, still there, still present. They're still present, that is true. I imagine the train ride at Disneyland that we had watched on the television station back in 1991 or so forth is still running its ride, is it not? Out. So indeed, every one of these memories is still present, is still alive, indeed, as you say of it. Indeed. September 15, 2013. I give this life experience, this world, to you, human animate substance. Make yourself into somebody, and you will be rewarded. If by the end of your life experience you represent to me nothing further than some doodling on a scrap paper, then you shall be crumpled up and tossed away from me. Make yourself into somebody, and you will be rewarded. 9, 16, 20 to 13. I'm quite alright tonight. This is what it means to work. Horrible existence. Indeed, horrible it is. Disgusting, unnatural preoccupation. Disgusting to you, oh my. It is. I was not meant to work. I'm not the type. No, of course not. You are indeed, along with me, an aristocrat of the soul. Natural leisure elite. Nature never meant women to do these things anyway. It is against nature. Oh no, agreeable so strongly with you. I am the natural leisure elite. Haha. So true. Yes, you are. You're up there with me. But anyway, as I say, and you agree with, women were not meant for this. Thank you, darling. No, love, they were not. Are you going to see that apartment today? Thursday, I called this woman and arranged with her so that on Odin's Day I shall see the cottage itself. I couldn't imagine it being worse than the Garden of Eden wilderness place here. It would have to be a step up from here, were I to move into it. I agree. What do you think, love? What about noise? I mean, if there were parties there. Noise is my most troubling concern about it. Yes, the area itself is not quite clear to me yet. It won't be that much difference. I see Google Map images just up to the cabins themselves, but the images did not tell me much about it. Ultimately not. Not much different if parties right. No, that's the trouble with Google Maps. One cottage is up against it. You can't always get a clear view. Another studio cottage that one is. Right, as you say, the street images were from 2007. Sunlight was blocking much of it, I think, yes. Well, in almost every other way, it must be better than the Garden of Eden wilderness. Outdated, could have changed much over time. At least you will be alone. Ah, yes, it could have changed. Well, the studio cottage is in the Garden of Eden wilderness as well. 2007 is a long time ago now. Ah, yes, I meant the place in the Garden of Eden wilderness. Yes, at least I will be alone there. Where you are now, exactly. Yes, the Garden of Eden wilderness place here right now. Here now, right. Just think, you'll wake up in the morning and be able to do anything you like, when you like. Oh yes, fantastic. So lovely. No distractions, no business from others, part of the household. Solitude to myself. No distractions. No self-consciousness from them. I would be able to work on my voice, reciting poetry, literature. Yes, my own first 2 books. Oh my goodness, at least 1,500 pages of text, capable while at the place there, to at last recite it all together. See, it sounds wonderful already. Improved my voice by now, absolutely. Yes, I'm so much more passionate now, articulate. And if there is some noise, I suppose you can turn yours up. Well versed with dialects, yes, darling. Indeed, I do not stumble with words so much anymore either. It is during recitations. No, you don't. Greater it is now. Marvelous. Yes, also, I could do discourse films likewise. Well, I can only see it as a good thing. I'm credible and legitimate, not rambling nonsense to others anymore. I'm clear and evident and coherent with my thoughts by now, sharply so. Good. Indeed, my own place. No other sounds but birds chirping and dogs barking. Cars driving by, yes. I do not mind this, however. But check the neighbors. White degenerates, yes. Remember where I live. Yes, darling, it's a small English market town. Only white. Yes, of course. Until a few years ago. Then, suddenly, one appeared into, then a family. Yes, madness, atrocity. And they have large families, far more than us. Oh yes, they do. No one can believe it. Where did they come from? Pack and rude barbarians, tribalists. Indeed. Right, where indeed. Same here, wherever they are. How did so many of them make it so far north up there? One of them stood in the window of his home with the light on, licking his dinner plate clean. Gross. They were brought here by design. Oh yes, by design. By liberal and left-wing idiots. Understanding the bondage moralists. What is the matter with them? They wish us to race mix and destroy the white race. Yes, final cause era of Western history. We can only be happy if we are all coffee-colored. Yes, you're right, Odin. Oh, horrendous the thought of that. It is. And last night, unspeakable, on television, yes, as I was watching the weather, an advert came on, yet another mixed-race couple, but it is always a white woman and a Negro man, and usually she is pregnant. Right, it is deliberate. Oh, the madness of commercials indeed, and grotesque. It is one of the primary methods of their insanity, their despicableness. A child growing up now is going to think that is normal. Atrocity, that is. It is. The children of this generation, but now they have clearly no memory of the better times of the past. So I am not surprised that they have made it as far as the Garden of Eden wilderness. No, the children know nothing of how we were, only in Scotland. No child by now has any good experiences. They are still old-fashioned. Part of the Western civilization in Scotland, I see, yes. Very high, there it is, too cold for darkness. Again, co-cornered with the children of Alaska. Yes, too cold, not of their blood. The little schools have children of whiteness. Too cold. Yes, it is always the underground communities without the darkness. Yes, we are under threat like never before. For with the urbanized, metropolitan, mass-polluted city garbage, there is obliviousness to mainstream nonsense. So darkness of archetype naturally, inevitably predicates itself to it, for lightness looks over it all. This is not like a war, where you pick up a weapon and fight and win or lose. This is a war against the complete race. Yet the mainstream nonsense aforementioned becomes desolated, the bloodless, sightless war. Yes, your words are true, unseen to our persons. Yes, clearly intentional to the antagonists. It is an ideological war, seen to them, right, very hard to win. With the inevitable victors of the dark side, we are fighting an idea. We terminate our history altogether. I fear you're right. Yes, for we came so very far, and all our greatness gone. We had to zenith, then to decline. For we were the greatest race on earth, then to disappear, terminate. We've indeed reached our zenith. Earliest unparalleled Roma was to have been our zenith. Yes, just up to that point where we are too severe. Oh, our pain, we hurt everybody else. Spring up the Christus then. Spring up Balder. Spring up the Christus then. Spring up the Christus Balder then. Naturally so. Unfortunately, spring up the Christus then. Naturally so. Unfortunately, to our course of progression. Oh, so true. The early Christians, indeed. That weakened us. The very source of the decline and fall had the Christus not successfully influenced imperial Roma. Christus is the first true liberal. Could you imagine what grandiosity would have become afterward? I can only imagine. I agree with you. The first legitimate liberal, the Christus. Socrates was before him. But we started to believe and turn the other cheek. That command spelled doom into a race. Though ultimately Socrates and Plato were master moralists. Yes, that is right. Listen to this business, and material activity. Do you not sense what this designates of us? Plato's Republic is supposed to be the blueprint for a national socialist state. We are selling our soul to the malevolence down below. We are. The soul predicates now to merchandise and so forth. Our merchandise. Materialism. Our business, consumerism, life experience here and now. Our merchandise that we obsess over to sell it to the customer. This merchandise represents our works of art. Our great minds of the Renaissance. But the teachings of Christus ultimately weakened us. It was almost like a conspiracy to destroy the West, using the turn the other cheek in forgiveness. Of the Baroque and of the Enlightenment even, and so forth. Oh, you're so right, Odin. Right, we turn the other cheek to those down below that resent us. Yes, that's it. We do. They do not like us, for we stand far and high above them. Yes, Spengler mentions the cash society by the stage that we are in. Cash society, indeed. The seller of the business is the Western man. He is. The customer of the transaction is the malevolence down below. The malevolence down below predicates, of course, the darkness. The Western man, by this point in time, is revolving everything around himself with the consumerism and mercantile business and so forth. Indeed, he has reached a stage that he is only selling his soul to the customer, to the darkness. That's right. And the darkness itself, the customer, does not like the seller to begin with. So here, he, the buyer, destroys the merchandise afterward. So that ultimately he is predicated to the business transactions with the Western man. But at the same time, he tramples the merchandise afterward. Yes. Then ultimately, the seller, the Western man, possesses only money. Money predicates to waste and burial and so forth. And the vicious buyer down below possesses nothing but destruction and annihilation of the Western man. Resentment in him remains. I can see then why the Western man runs out of his commodities. Resentment, oh yes, he's incapable to produce them any further. Disrespect ever further from the down below increases. The buyers are now everywhere surrounding the merchants. The merchants are ultimately beheaded. This must be the conclusion. Our skulls on their stakes, gruesome and morbid, but completely real. They retain their own cultures and tribal identities. It is a grim picture you draw, but an accurate one. The Western man permits this of them to do so anyway, while the darkness is here around us. Yes, grim it is and accurate. Imperial Roma would not predicate itself to consumer business, money, society. That is the horror of it, that we are allowing our own downfall. We must remember this, living in our own demise, and identifying this Roman principle with ourselves, with those lesser beings. Yes, with Christian morality, the selling of the soul of the Western man, of the light to the darkness, had begun. Its first half of its course did not concern itself with materialism. Yes, indeed, rather it considered itself with the vagueness and ambiguities, heart and sentimentality, preparation for the latter half of its historical course, which the latter half is its ultimate aim or final cause motive. The heart in the sentimentality era epoch is the means to the end. The end is indeed ultimately the extermination of the lightness, the light of the world exterminated. This predicates to the Romans, to the Greeks. True, the light of the world exterminated. To the Teutonics as well, to the Slavs. Yes, yes, terrible. Oh, how terrible it is indeed. It is terrible. I see it every day, ever the more. September 16, 2013. Nine 16/2013 too. I was in a deep sleep earlier today as well. Well, I'm pleased you've awakened on time this morning. Essentially on time. Haha. Oh yes, I'm shattered. How was your day? Well, today was quite good for you, actually. Tell. I woke later in the evening, and time was passing by. There was a silence at the house. I couldn't sense anybody else here at the place. I confirmed over time that there was nobody else to hear. That recently I had read through these poems of this one woman that I had known so warmly and closely together with her during my earliest childhood years. By no means am I able to find anything about her anywhere online any further, though there remains these several poems on this webpage that I'm certain that they are hers. What a shame. Ilmer, Camilla Shapiro, Laura Camilla Shapiro, who's Ilmer. Ilmer in the Nordic mythology pantheon named out of way, Ilmer. I've heard from these poems of hers, returning to them over the course of time. Ilmer is a lovely name. She's one of us. She has to be one of us. Or if not, then she is close enough to us master moralists. She's indeed full cause of her identity's predication. She's bright and brilliant. She's blonde of hair, blonde of essence, blue-eyed. I remember her so many years ago, back in 1996. Did she marry? The year of separation of Sigyn from Ask. Was she like an aunt to you? Again, at the same time, this was the year that had separated my connection and contact with her as well. Ilmer, she was my age. So sad you lost touch. Just several months older than me. Oh, your age. Yes, oh, okay. She was my childhood friend, my closest female childhood friend. She was my neighbor. Right, at the Ryan Drive house. They were a good family. This beautiful, expansive house of theirs, of hours of asks and Sigyns. The huge yard, this long driveway of tiles, 3 stories the house it was, playing our games out there, out in the yard, at her place as well. By yard, do you mean garden? With her younger brother, name withheld, final comments. With her younger brother, Jacob, name withheld in the Nordic mythology, pantheon, name, title, evolution, way, final components, journeys, yes, a garden. There were walkways in the garden. There's a swimming pool. There's a caged aviary with mint leaves growing that all of us would taste them from time to time. There's a field out front. How wonderful. With trees Oscar would suffer to get rid of over time, actually. There's a shed in one faraway corner. There's a guest house. The pool table and a dart board. Several rooms it had. There were arches. They were wealthy. below the second floor. Oh, this is my house that I lived at that I'm describing, darling. When I was very young. Oh, okay, haha, very lovely. Ilmer's house was across the street. Her house must have been the same. It was essentially just as luxurious and expansive. Yes, very nice indeed. There was the first dog she had that I would have ever known of. Shame you lost contact with her. Sierra. Final components. Name withheld in the Nordic mythology. Pantheon. Name, title, evolution, way. Final components. Sierra. Therefore, Sierra was her name. Final components. Essentially, final components. Long since dead by now, I reason. Sadly, yes. I had lost contact with her, indeed. I've not seen her more than once since after 1996. Can you find her again, I wonder? Only one time I had seen her some years afterward at the Sunset Drive house. She had come over to the place to babysit. Hell. Can I find her again? There's on that website of her poetry a contact email that links to her father, Doge. Final components. It seems name withheld in Nordic mythology, pantheon, name, title, evolution, way, final components. It says, write any comments to him, and he shall forward such comments. It says, write any comments to him, and he shall forward such comments to Ilmer. Oh, why don't you do so? This is an old website. Try it anyway. I don't know if he has this email anymore, but indeed, as you say, try it anyway. I should. She's a right mind. The right mind, oh yes. And she was your friend. Somehow, if I were to find her, you might meet up and hit it off again. She just might be the right one for me in person. Or to restore contact with her. Absolutely. I would try very hard. She's indeed my own formal cause and my reflection. Her poetry, I must tell you. Her poems. One look at you and she will go weak at the knees. They're speaking about me. Her subconscious reflections. Oh, right. In the poems. This struck me deeply. How wonderful. At the recognition of this, she's wholly pessimistic about this life. She makes mystical references to long-lost times, to some long-lost love. That was you. How could this long-lost love of hers not be this indirect reference to I myself? So deeply has her psychology become affected by this long-lost, long-ago separation between her and I. And my own psychology, too. It just must be affected over the course of these years by the separation between her and I, Ilmer, and Odin. Well, it would be good to contact her. If you didn't comprehend this. I know it by now. I recited her poetry tonight. It is all there recited and put into a video and published online, with this deep understanding of the aforementioned assertions, attributable to my voice tenor, and so forth in the recitations. We speak of her again. We must speak of her again. Please try that website. I must find her again. I haven't a clue where she is to this day. She hasn't any Facebook or anything else for that matter that I can find of her. Well, Sherlock. Sherlock. This shall become meticulous detective work. Get that head on, start thinking. Yes. You have your father's email source to start with. This is our lead. That's a start. Start thinking, start finding her. Yes. Yes. September 16, 2013.